Welcome. Today we are going to talk about rounding to the nearest 10 or 100. For Unlock the Problem, when you round a number, you find a number that tells you about how much or about how many. For Unlock the Problem, the question is, Mia's baseball bat is 32 inches long. What is its length rounded to the nearest 10 inches? One way that we could solve this problem is we could use a number line to round. For A, it wants us to round 32 to the nearest 10. So if we look at our number line here, we have 30 and we have 40. Wherever 32 is, it is closer to 30. Find which tens the number is between. We know that 32 is between 30 and 40. 32 is closer to 30 than it is to 40. 32 rounded to the nearest 10 is 30. So the length of Mia's bat rounded to the nearest 10 inches is 30 inches. B, round 174 to the nearest 100. Find which hundreds the number is between. So if we use our number line, here's 174. We see that it is between 100 and 200. 174 is between 100 and 200. 174 is closer to 200 than it is to 100. So 174 rounded to the nearest 100 is 200. Try this. Round 718 to the nearest 10 and 100. Locate and label 718 on the number lines. To the nearest 10, 718 is closer to, well, we need to find where 718 would be. Here's 700, here's 710, here's 720. Our in-between marks, we would say this could be 700, 705, 710, 715, and 720. So 718 is going to be in here. 718 is closer to 720 than it is to 710. So 718 rounds to 720, right here. Nearest 100, we have our number line up here. 700, 750, 800. 718 is closer to blank than it is to blank. Well, we need to find 718. Here's 700, and here's 750. These are going to be 710, 720, 730, 740, 750. So 718 is going to be in between 710 and 720. So it is closer to 700 than it is to 800. So 718 rounds to 700. Another way is to use place value. Round 63, to the nearest 10. Okay? So, if you are rounding to the nearest 10, you're going to look. The digit in the ones place tells you if the number is closer to 60 or 70. Now we have a rhyme that we use, and if you remember a rhyme, it is if you're rounding, look next door, 5 or greater, add 1 more. Numbers in front stay the same, numbers behind, 0 is your name. So if we are looking at 63, we're rounding to the nearest 10, So we underline our 10, 10's place, and do our rhyme. If you're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. Our 3 is not 5 or greater, so we do not add one more, and our 6 stays a 6. Then we go back up to the 10's place. Numbers in front stay the same. There's nothing up here, so we do not have to change anything. Go back to our 6, numbers behind, 0's your name. So if we use place value, change our 3 to a 0, and we can tell that 63 rounded to the nearest 10 is 60. Same thing if we're rounding 457 to the nearest 100. We would do the same thing, but we underline the number in the hundreds place. So the number in the hundreds place would be our 4. Then we do our rounding rhyme. If you're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. So our 5 is 5 or greater. So our 4 now becomes a 5. Go back to our hundreds place. Numbers in front stay the same. There's nothing here, so we don't have to change anything. Numbers behind, 0's your name. So 457 rounded to the nearest 100 is 500. Well, you all officially have heard my dog bark. Sorry for that. Sometimes he gets a little excited. Okay, moving on. Our share and show. Locate and label 46 on the number line. Round to the nearest 10. So we need to find 46. We look at our number line, we have 30, 40, 50, and 60. We also have the in-between marks. So we have 30, this would be 35, 40, 45, 50. So if we had to locate 46, it would be somewhere in between here. So if we look right here, 46 would be closer to 50. Oops, I'm sorry. 46 is between 40 and 50. 46 is closer to 50. If it's right here, it's going to be closer to 50 than it is to 40. 46 rounded to the nearest 10 is then 50. Round to the nearest 10. Okay, so this section wants us to round the numbers that they give us to the nearest 10. I'm going to show us how to do it over here on this whiteboard. So we have our number 19. If it wants us to round to the nearest 10, we're going to underline the number in the tens place. We're going to do our rounding rhyme. If we're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. The 9 is 5 or greater, so we're going to add one more. So our 1 now becomes a 2. Numbers in front stay the same. There's no numbers up here, so we don't have to add anything. Numbers behind, 0's your name. So for number 4, 19 rounds to 20. For number 5, 66. Underline the number in the tens place since it wants us to round to the nearest 10. If you're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. Our 6 is 5 or greater, so this 6 that we underline now becomes a 7. Numbers in front stay the same. There's no numbers up here. Numbers behind, 0's your name. So 66 rounds to 70. Let me get a new board. 51 is our next problem. Underline the number in the tens since it wants us to round to the nearest 10. If you're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. Well, our 1 is less than 5, so we do not have to add one more. Our 5 stays a 5. Numbers in front stay the same. There's nothing up there. Numbers behind, 0's your name. So for 51, it rounds to 50. Okay, moving on. Round to the nearest 100. Okay, so we have the problem, or the number, excuse me, 463. For rounding it to the nearest 100, we need to underline the number in the hundreds place. So here is our ones, tens, hundreds. So I'm going to underline our 4. If we're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. The 6 is 5 or greater, so our 4 becomes a 5. Numbers in front stay the same. Numbers behind, 0's your name. So 463 rounded to the nearest 100 is 500. $202. I'm going to underline the number in the hundreds place and do our rounding rhyme. If you're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. This is not 5 or greater, so our 2 stays a 2. Numbers in front stay the same. There's nothing up there. Numbers behind, 0's your name. 202 rounded to the nearest 100 is 200. And the next one, 658. If we round to the nearest 100, we're going to underline our 6 and do our rounding rhyme. If you're rounding, look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. Our 5 is 5 or greater, so the 6 turns into a 7. Numbers in front stay the same. There's nothing up there. Numbers behind, 0's your name. 658 rounded to the nearest 100 is 700. Okay. Now, be on your own. Locate and label 458 on the number line. Round to the nearest 100. So 458. Here we have 400, 500, 600. So here would be 400, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 500. 548 would be 410, 20, 30, 40, 50. So it's going to be right in between here. So for the nearest 100, it's between 400 and it's between 500. 548, if we look where it is on the number line, it is closer to 400 than it is to 500. 548 rounded to the nearest 100 is 400. Okay. And our last problem. This is a story problem. There are 372 workers at a software company. There are 483 workers at a lumber company. When rounding to the nearest 100, which company has 400 workers.